Hello and welcome to HBM's Crypto-Corner for Wednesday, March 2nd, 2022. We have a couple of things to talk about, so let's get started. Is that a Tasmanian tiger? Driver claims he spotted long-extinct marsupial scurrying down a city street, but there may be a better explanation. TikTok video shows an animal resembling Tasmanian tiger in Melbourne Street. The thin animal was seen scurrying beside a street in suburban Strathmore. Most people commenting on the clip believe the animal was a sick fox or dog. The last confirmed thylacine died in captivity from exposure in Hobart in 1936. New video shows the moment a driver spots a Tasmanian tiger-like animal scurrying down Melbourne Street. TikTok user AndyB11 uploaded the video of a skinny grayish creature with a long tail and mottled coat racing down a road in the inner northwest suburb of Strathmore. The driver questioned whether it could be the long extinct marsupial, which is still the subject of regular sightings. One of the passengers then chased the animal while filming on his phone before the creature broke into a trot and escaped through roadside bushes.
Come on. Yeah.
What the heck
What
is
the
this?
hell is that?
Oh my god.
Emora.
Emora. Tasmanian tiger. Fuck.
In the TikTok video, a skinny grayish animal with a long tail that resembles a Tasmanian tiger is filmed as it scurries away from a car. Is that an extinct Tassie tiger? The driver captioned the footage. Looked like a very weird and aged creature. Commenters on the video thought the animal was most likely a fox, while others thought it was an underfed dog. It's a bit small for a Tasmanian tiger. It looks like a fox with mange or something, one person commented. I'm sure Tassie tigers were bigger than that. While the animal in the video does appear to have a semblance of stripes on its back, they are nowhere as distinct as those on the Tasmanian tiger, which gave the native mammal its name. The Tasmanian tiger was in fact a marsupial rather than a big cat. Its proper name is the thylacine. The last known live Tasmanian tiger, Benjamin, died from exposure at the Beaumaris Zoo in Hobart on September 7, 1936. Thylacines ranged in size from 100 to 103 centimeters in length and 50 to 65 centimeters in height and weighed between 15 to 30 kilograms. The animal seen on video is about a meter in length and about 50 centimeters tall, which would be consistent with a dog or fox. The thylacines ranged in size from 100 to 130 centimeters in length and 50 to 65 centimeters in height and weighed between 15 to 30 kilograms. The last verified thylacine, Benjamin, died from exposure at the Beaumaris Zoo in Hobart on September 7, 1936, just 2 months after the species was granted protected status. Since then, there have been regular instances of people claiming to have seen or pictured one of the animals. So, once again, we have a possible case of a thylacine, or is it just misidentification? My bet is misidentification, but you never know. Maybe somebody finally got one on video. Who knows? Finally, UFOs and the British Bigfoot, Mystery and Controversy by Nick Redfern. Regardless of what people may personally feel or conclude about the British Bigfoot UFO connection, None can deny that when we go looking for places in Britain where both enigmas have been seen and encountered, there is certainly no shortage of stories to address. The number of sightings of the man monkey of the UK's Shropshire Union Canal, seen in 1879 at a nearby bridge, remain in the nearby village of Ranton. The spectral beast is still seen there. It so happens that, back in the 1950s, Renton was the site of a famous but now largely forgotten UFO encounter. Researcher Gavin Gibbons wrote in 1957 that one October evening in 1954, a Dutchman living in England named Tony Rostenberg returned home to find his wife Jessie in a terrified state. According to Jessie, earlier that day nothing less than a flying saucer hovered over their isolated farmhouse in Renton. In addition, Jessie could see peering down from the craft two very Nordic-like men that could have stepped right out of the pages of the controversial Desmond Leslie George Adamski tome Flying Saucers Have Landed. Their foreheads were high, their hair was long and fair, and they seemed to have pitiful looks on their faces. Strange craft reportedly circled the family's home twice before shrinking away. Curiously, on the following Sunday, Tony Rostenberg had a hunch that if he climbed on the roof of his house, he would see something unusual, which he most certainly did. It was a high-flying, cigar-shaped object that vanished into the clouds. Gavin Gibbons, who investigated the case personally, stated, "When I visited the Rostenberg's house almost 3 weeks after the sighting, Jessie Rostenberg appeared. She seemed highly strained and nervous, and her husband, coming in later, was also very strange. It was evident that something most unusual had occurred. Moving ahead, Castle Ring, Staffordshire, from where a number of significant Bigfoot-type reports have surfaced, also has long-standing link to UFO activity. Graham Allen, former head of the now defunct Etching Hill, Rugeley-based Staffordshire UFO group, and who had taken over the reins from the group's founder Irene Bott several years earlier, said in 2005, "Castle Ring is the highest point on the Cannock Chase, which makes it a good place for UFO spotting. There have been numerous incidents of UFOs, which could be because you are more likely to see something from a high point." Allen elaborated that with respect to unearthly encounters at Castle Ring, there have been reports of something landing there in the 1960s. From a research point of view, there are a high number of reports around ancient sites. One argument could be that ancient sites have been located there because of the incidence of UFOs and natural phenomena. There could be locations where there could be magnetic influences in the ground which have been attributed to the Earth lights. Then there is the Shug Monkey of Rendlesham Forest, Suffolk. It also happens to be the site of what was undeniably Britain's most famous UFO encounter. It also happens to be the site of what was undeniably Britain's most famous UFO encounter, that of December 1980. And to illustrate still further, the UFO Hairy Man connection just down the road, so to speak, from Rendlesham Forest to the town of Orford, home to a legendary wild man caught in the seas off the coast of Orford centuries ago. Now we come to the strangest UFO British Bigfoot case I have on record. In 1968, a man named Alistair Baker headed up to Loch Ness and spent a handful of weeks with a camera and binoculars, quietly and carefully monitoring the loch for any unusual activity of the long-necked and humped variety. Baxter never did see the elusive beast of Loch Ness, but he was able to speak with numerous people who had seen it. After being at the loch side almost constantly for 5 weeks, however, an unusual event occurred. Baxter was awoken in the middle of the night by a curious humming sound that was emanating from a bright, small ball of light about the size of a football that, at a height of around 15 feet from the ground, was slowly and carefully making its way through the surrounding trees that enveloped Baxter's modestly sized tent. Suddenly, and without warning, the ball of light shot into the sky to a height of several hundred feet and hovered in deathly silence over the still waters of Loch Ness. For reasons that Baxter was at a loss to explain, he felt an overwhelming urge to go back to sleep, and the next thing he knew was daybreak, but the strangeness had barely begun. Shortly after breakfast, 3 men in black suits appeared outside of Baxter's tent, seemingly out of nowhere, proceeded to ask him if he had seen anything unusual during the night. He replied that he hadn't, at which point one of the 3 men turned to his 2 colleagues and made what Baxter said was a strange smile. He turned to face Baxter. "We might return," said one of the mysterious men in black, and all 3 departed by simply walking off into the woods. They never did return. Most interesting, for the following 3 nights, Baxter had a recurring and frightening dream of a large and lumbering ape-man that paced outside of his tent and would then head down to the shores of the loch. Whereupon, under a starlit sky, it would tilt its head back, wail loudly, and stand staring at the ink-black water. The dream would always end the same way, with an image of a huge and ominous atomic mushroom cloud exploding in the distance, at the beginning of the Third World War and the end of civilization. I can't say I understand all of this. I certainly don't. All I can say for sure about the controversy of the British Bigfoot and its UFO connection is that it's real. Well, I don't know about that, but this is very strange. Seems to me there's very strange stuff happening in England surrounding possible man monkeys, Bigfoot, British Bigfoot, and UFOs. Could it be just a coincidence? That's always a possibility. So who knows? And that's going to do it for this week. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. You guys are the heart of the show. I always say that, but I always mean it. I'll continue to do this as long as you guys want me to. And hey, until next week, y'all be good or be good at this. This is May-HBM, Cryptid-Corner.